Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Litzar, happy to be your host today, joined by my colleague Vern Schellinger. I'm hoping Alki Thompson will be able to join us again soon. Anyway, so I wanted to kick off by sharing, and I will probably continue to share this as the weeks go on, that I've started a new initiative to support the federally displaced workforce. It's called Higher Vision, HIRE, Higher Vision. The tagline is Hope Above the Clouds. We kicked it off last Saturday with a free 3 hour career workshop. And it was sort of an overview, but it was really designed and is designed. The whole initiative is designed especially to help folks pivot outside of the governmental sector. So, the federal employment, government contracting, NGOs, anybody that's been disrupted by the federal funding, we're trying to help people, especially pivot outside. Now, they're certainly welcome to stay within that sector if they're able to find employment. That's fabulous. But we want to also support them in that kind of work. So, it started with the career workshop, and then the intention is to have weekly community, we don't know the name yet, but I'm going to call them community pods for the moment, where we have like higher vision education, higher vision healthcare, higher vision international development, so forth and so on. Because as we know, the government is broken down by sectors, right? And the NGOs and GovCon tend to flow in those sectors. And so we're hoping to create these little community groups where people can network and share resources and job postings and write all of the things. Anyway, so it's an initiative. It's a big initiative. And I've amassed so far about 20 some odd volunteers. A couple of folks, Mark and Monica, are on this call are already faithfully committed. If any of you would like to join, the more the merrier, because this is going to take a big old village to get this off and running. Then, and Vern also is helping. And this Saturday, tomorrow, at 1 o'clock Eastern, we're having another volunteer call to talk about the infrastructure because we need to measure a couple times before we cut, right? We want to make sure that it's a good structure so that when people plug in, they know where to go, and that this thing can really live on its own. My intention is to fade away at some point. I really want to catalyze this, but I want this group to stand on its own and be a community resource, not about me. It's about us, right? Doing this. I'm just kind of
Mhm.
pushing it out of the nest.
Mhm.
So there you are. So if anyone would like to join, please put your contact information in the or your email in the chat, and I will be happy to add you. And even if you can't join tomorrow, still happy to have you on the list, and we can contact you for future things. And all superpowers are welcome because I know a lot of people have different skills that they could lend. So with that, let's go ahead and kick off with our normal call today. And we will, still have Higher Moment Mastermind for the general collective, but that other higher vision group is really going to be mostly for the federally displaced folks. Okay. So with that, the way we work these calls, and think a few of you might be new, this is an open Q&A. For any job search question you might have. Vern and I are delighted to help you. I'm a recruiter and career coach. Vern is a former HR exec and career coach, and we have some complementary lenses to share. So who would like to kick us off? So Hillary says, for those who have been out of work when they've had to deal with a family medical condition, is it better to bring it up during the interview or just list it on the resume and wait for interview to bring it up? If it's brought up, how detailed should you get about it? Okay. So that's interesting. So Hillary, I'm not going to ask you whose family medical condition it was. That's actually on purpose. I'm not asking you that because if it's this is addressing this to everybody. If it is a personal family medical situation, you do not want to disclose that because you don't want to trip over the Americans with Disabilities Act, even though people are not supposed to discriminate. People are people, right? So we don't want to give them any reason to know more information than they should. So if a person dropped out of the workforce to care for their own medical health, you don't want to say that. But what you can do, oh, here's Alki. But what you can do actually is say that you stepped away. People say this in different ways. Some people do say stepped away to care for an ill family member, which is fine. There's nothing discriminatory about that. People understand that. They would not hold that against you. But what some people say is a personal sabbatical. That's a phrase that I've used and I've seen others use. It's very gentle. It doesn't have anything to do with medical anything. It's just you know personal sabbatical. And I would bring it up if somebody asks you, so why were you in transition for a long period? And by the way, in terms of a period, so if it was just 6 months, it's not really anything to overcome. If it was like 2 or more years, of a break, that's typically when an employer will go, what was going on, right? And then you can say, I had to take a personal sabbatical, but I am ready to, ready to re-enter the workforce. And that's it. You can just keep it as simple as that. You don't have to mention anything more than that. And even if you did say family medical situation, you don't have to say anything more than that either. Okay. So that's how I would address that. So Monica, do you have something to share?
Yeah, on a similar note, I have a strange situation in that I had a series of medical problems, which thankfully are now resolved between now and 2019, two of which are ADA covered because it was cancer and a heart issue that's now been resolved for 2 years. And the cancer is more than 5 years. But my question is that I had problems because with my kid also having medical issues, but it turned out, this is really wild, that Kaiser Permanente created a fake medical record for me for 2019, suggesting I had a uterine thyroid and not colon cancer, which might have been laundered to the courts to prevent safety measures and ADA accommodations for me during the pandemic and preventing me from being in three-way medical visits with my ex. But it's the
So,
Maryland Insurance
so
Administration is
here,
currently
like,
investigating.
if I
And
can.
it's a big deal, but I'm scared because Kaiser
So
allegedly,
Monica, so
yeah,
so sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
I'm so sorry that you've had to deal with all of this. So here's what I would suggest for you and for anyone else who's dealing with anything that has a complexity to it. Don't bring it up. It is not
okay.
anybody's business what is going on with you. There's no reason why anybody should even ever know about it or investigate it because even though it is very complex, I do absolutely appreciate that. It's not an employer's business to know that. If it has nothing to do with your employment situation, in other words, your ability to commit to a full-time job, it is not anything for you to be disclosing. In fact, I would suggest for anyone on this call, be very, very careful. You don't want to mention anything because the second you mention anything, all of a sudden light bulbs go off and pink flags are raised, and you don't want anyone to have any reason to discriminate against you.
Yeah, well, I feel it's crazy because I'm in better health now than I have been. And, I literally could not get ADA accommodations during the pandemic. It was wild.
But now you're good, and so that's what
Yeah,
you want to
now
know.
that I'm
Now, so
good,
all that's in all. Well, let's just
I
say
know,
the rear view
but
mirror.
now that
Right.
I'm good,
Yeah.
I'm having to put on job applications where they ask you, have you ever had cancer or heart issues? I have to say yes, and so like when they ask you, and so like it's frustrating for me because I am fine now, but when I was in danger, I could not get the ADA accommodations. And
I'm
it's,
sorry.
it's wild if I don't have Kaiser, I
I'm
have
sorry,
CareFirst.
Monica. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. But thankfully you're good now. So
Yeah.
we're gonna praise God for that. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful.
But yeah, but I'm just it's the whole situation was just so
I'm
disturbing. And so anybody who knows me may know about this, and it just makes me a little nervous.
I think it's is that a question about disability? Isn't that a question about disability? Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
should not, no one should be ever asking anybody in an employment situation to list out medical situations because anything that has to do with HIPAA, and I don't know why anybody would
Well,
ask.
no, it's happened twice, or at least maybe three times, where I've filled out job applications,
Shouldn't be.
and it's they have a list of issues, including previous. It's the
Shouldn't.
wording is like, have you ever had do you have
So
cancer or had cancer in
here's
the
what I would
past?
here's what I would say, and
And
I'm
so
so
you either have to refuse to disclose or you have to say yes.
so
Monica, we've got a couple of other questions we need to
yeah, we'll need
get
we'll
to
need to
here.
move on
So,
from this topic.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not medical experts. All I would suggest
Yeah.
is that disability issues are supposed to be not be asked about. I'm sorry that they were, but if they are in the future, my recommendation is to talk to the employer because they really aren't supposed to be asking. Okay, so moving on.
Okay.
So Danielle says, should I have a concern about including my federal agency on my resume due to the current narrative? Actually, not. My recommendation here is that it's actually the opposite of what you might be thinking. Right now, especially here in the DMV, we have height employers, I am finding, have heightened sensitivity in a positive direction around federal employees who've been displaced. I mean, in a very positive way. I can't even tell you how many people I've talked to who are just so compassionate and say, wow, you're part of the federal disruption. What can we do to help? So if anything, what's going on is causing a lot of goodwill in the private sector community toward those who have been displaced. So if anything, I think that's a very good thing that you mentioned that you're a federal employee, and then people say, oh, what's going, they know, right? And then they're often going to be more receptive to you. So that would be my response to that. Bridget?
Sure, sure. And
Yes.
Andrea, I wouldn't add anything to that. Andrea has a question. I've been laid off twice in 12 months. Should I note this somehow on my resume? My last position, only 7 months, wondering how you might, what it might impact what a recruiter thinks. So,
Do you want to address that, Vern?
uh, yeah, I mean, certainly you've got to put it on your resume if it's a year, how do you account for the year? Just be honest. If you're laid off, you're laid off.
Right.
Nothing to do with your
Yeah.
inability to perform but the employer will want to know, okay, so where were you in this year?
Yeah, they'll want to know what that and something else you can do. Not everyone does this, but I have seen it done very effectively. Where I'll try to describe this well. You can actually list your reasons for leaving on your resume in a very succinct way that will anticipate the employer's question. So, for example, what you could do is underneath your dates, you know how you'll have like, company title and then date will be, let's say, on the far right hand side. Right underneath there in parentheses in small type, let's say 9-point type, maybe 10-point. You can say reason for leaving, colon, and then a very short description. You say position eliminated or budget cuts or something like that. You could say laid off, but it's better if you say position eliminated, budget cuts, company closed, something like that can be helpful. If there's that kind of reason, then it just overcomes it. Then the recruiter's like, great, thanks for letting me know. I don't even have to ask you the question. And if you do that down the page, it's like you're anticipating the question, and then they're less likely to kind of probe. All right, so I hope that helps. Bridget?
Is it is there any value in going to some of the job fairs? I went to New Psalmist Baptist Church had a job fair, huge one, which was different than ones that I had gone to before where it was more personable.
Mm-hmm.
This one was more like a stereotypical job fair for federal workers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them walked away feeling a little disheartened because it was a stereotypical job fair. That's not how they advertised it.
In what way was it stereotypical?
Um, they all the employers had tables, and when you went up to them, some of them had the listings of jobs. Most were saying, take a picture of the QR code and apply.
Oh, I see.
The premise was they gave us a list beforehand and said, go online, apply if you qualify, and when you
Uh-huh.
show up,
And it
bring
was the
your
exact same thing.
resume and list the recs on your resume to
Oh,
hand them to them. And most did not want the resumes.
oh, I see.
And I was wondering if there's value in going to something like that.
Look, it's a personal choice, right? To me, the more you can show up in person somewhere and network, the better. Because even if it's not with that employer, you could be networking with the people standing in line. Or maybe you could shake a hand. Maybe somebody puts a name to a face and the person standing behind the table, maybe they don't necessarily engage the way you'd want to, but you never know, right? So to me, it's worth it if it's the sector that you're looking to go into. If you have the time, I think it's good. Now, it may not be exactly what you're looking for, but you never know. You meet one wonderful person and all of a sudden there's this fabulous synergy. I would take the time. That's my opinion, but yeah, you have to balance your load there of what you intend. And Vern, could you help out with the chat? Because I'm noticing that there's some flurry there.
Yeah.
But Alki sounds like you're also participating.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's anything you feel that to bring to the main room, happy to address it.
Danielle had a question. Should I have a concern about including my Fed agency on my resume due
Yeah,
to
we
the
we
current
just addressed
narrative
it. Yeah,
in
we
the
just addressed
advice?
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think there's any concern there. I think it's actually
yeah,
positive.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good. Okay. All right. Other questions? Or any topics you'd like Vern, Alki, or I to dive into. Although Alki sounds like his audio is not working too well.
Yeah. Uh,
Audio is working.
Oh, good, good.
The
Excellent.
video on
There you
my
are.
Oh,
side,
the video is
and
not working. Okay.
yeah, you guys are pink for some reason,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
and I am not even appearing.
Okay. Well, good.
But good morning.
We can hear you.
Just one resource to pass along. I'll put the name in the chat. I listened to a LinkedIn session on, and this topic comes up a lot on this call, ageism. And the woman who presented, her name was Ashton Applegate. She was probably one of the most well-versed, knowledgeable people about ageism that I've ever heard. So, like I said, I'll put her name. You can look her up on LinkedIn, and if that's a concern for and it is a concern. I know it's been brought up. So, you can. She's got some TED Talks and things you can make avail yourself to if you think that's something you need to think about.
Great, Vern. Thank you.
Yeah.
And look, if anyone has resources on things, on topics like this, feel free to put them in the chat, right? We're here to help each other. It's not just me, Vern, and Alki, right? You all have good advice and best practices and probably things you've picked up along the way. So please feel free to chat us.
Yeah, and a lot of times your experiences are something somebody else is thinking
That's
about
right.
or has happened to them. And
That's
so,
exactly right. That's
yeah.
All right. Other questions?
I'll just speak my question out. I put two questions in the chat. So I was wondering any guidance on not including federal jargon on resumes for transitioning into the private sector? And then
Oh, that's a very big topic. In fact, that's something that we're going to probably have to deal with. Danielle, were you on the call in the beginning when I mentioned my new initiative, Higher Vision?
no, I put a question in there asking to repeat that as well. Yeah, I missed that. You were in the midst of it, so I missed it.
Oh,
If you
yeah,
could repeat
sure.
that.
Sure. I'll just very quickly just mention for you, and I think we have a couple of new people who joined after I started. So I'm starting a new initiative called Higher Vision, HIRE, Higher Vision, Hope Above the Clouds, specifically for the federally displaced workforce. We had a free career workshop last weekend, and actually, I'll put that. Actually, could Vern or Alki, could you go to my website under the job seeker tab and go down to Shira Speaks to Job Seekers? That on that page has the recording for that meeting, along with the slide deck. And there's like three links. There's a part one, part two, and then a slide deck. Danielle, we're hoping to have weekly job support groups by sector, like higher vision healthcare, higher vision education, that kind of thing. And this is one of the main things we're going to have to deal with is transitioning folks from the federal resume to the private sector. Right off the bat, I'm just going to give you two tips. That's just two right now. Number one, the length of the resume. You can't have the 10-page thing. It just does not work. You want something that's about 2, maybe 3 pages. And this is number one. But number two, you want to have short accomplishment stories, 2 or 3 lines each, that are labeled with competencies. And you want these accomplishment stories to be action oriented, things you did, not they're not job duties, they're accomplishments. So what did you actually accomplish? You spearheaded something, you directed something, but then what was the outcome of what you did? So to the extent that you can go through your work and really remember, okay, so there was once upon a time, here was something that I did, and here was a good outcome. If it has a metric, that's great. Maybe you saved money. Maybe you streamlined an operation. You facilitated some sort of partnership, whatever you did. But there should be some sort of outcome, even if there's not a metric. So I'm just going to mention active verbs are going to be important here, and very short accomplishment stories. Private sector employers tend to scan resumes, not read them. and they want to see keywords that are related to the role that you're applying for. So all resumes, this is for everybody on this call, all your resumes need to be tailored for the job you are applying, period. Like they all have to be. You don't want to have a generic resume anymore. You can have a master resume, a standard one, but you want to be tweaking the keywords all the way along to line up with what the job posting is talking about. And you'll typically find those keywords in the summary of the job, in the first 3 bullets of the job description, and then the first few bullets of the qualification section. That's typically where the employer is going to lean in and kind of give you a clue as to what's most important to them. So that's kind of my quick high level. Alki would love to hear what you
Yeah,
have
I'm on your website. Where did I find that thing you want me to put on?
here. Let me just take a minute.
I was getting ready to paste it, but
Oh, you're good. Great. Go for it.
Okay, never mind. My bad. Sorry about that.
Go for it. Thank you, Alki.
Danielle has
That was
another.
helpful.
Yeah, great. Alki, if you have a second, if you're able to, if you want to opine on that, this for anybody's sake and on resumes, because I know you do resumes as well.
was that a question about government to private
From
sector resume?
government to private sector.
Yep, that's a task. Usually the tops for me are usually and I know it's difficult, but obviously it has to be shrunken down. Everything has to be shrunken down. I tend to find that you all bring a lot of skills and qualifications to the table that is usually overwhelming in a good way for private sector hiring managers. You have so much to offer, they're not used to seeing it. So the task is usually, the challenge is usually shrinking it down into bite-sized pieces for them. But I would always say, and I have always said, really study the job description. And it's what we say on this call a lot, and try to be as try to match your qualifications as identical as you can to what you see in the job description, bullet point by bullet point. And that should be enough if you cover what they're asking for. And when you get in your interview, that's when you expand and opine on your experiences and the other things that you bring to the table. But that's the easiest way that I've told FedGov moving to private sector on how to shrink your resume down and match it to what private sector employers look for. They really love your skills, your qualifications, the trainings, all those things. I would rush those right to the top so they see them right away. All of your accomplishments, your accomplishment stories, and the credentials that you've gathered over the years.
Thank you. And then my other question is, speaking of job fairs, how do you approach them without feeling intimidated? And what are some steps to prepare and not feel overwhelmed? Thank you.
So Werner, Alki, you want to address this? Because I'm not really a job fair expert, actually.
Say that
Just
again.
real quick. What I do is I find out what companies are there, do some research, and then go into LinkedIn and find out if I'm not connected to any of those people and reach out to them before the thing. And so then they'll recognize who you are, and then, oh yeah, I remember you, Kelly. Yeah, so but doing research beforehand is very important. And just I kind of just emphasize you do enough research, have questions in line, but you're having a conversation with them. And everyone else is out there looking for a job too, but you should have a conversation with them. Don't be intimidated. And then also ask them, how can I help you out with your picking up employees and all that stuff, your candidates. And be surprised by saying that you spin the table and saying, oh wow, this guy's pretty helpful. So that's my take.
Thanks, Kelly. Anyone else have some best practices on job fairs, or Vern?
Well, I mean, one of the things, whether it's a job fair or an interview, you've got to have confidence in your own abilities and skills. And again, when it said, well, Danielle says, what are some of the steps to prepare and to not feel overwhelmed? Obviously, they're going to, in terms of preparation, what are some of the stories that, somebody says, well, tell me, something about, the accomplishment you're most proud of. I mean, you can prepare before a job fair for all of those types of questions, and you should, just like you would for an interview.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a kind of a mini interview.
Yes, yeah. It's not a full-blown interview, but it's the recruiting process. It's the very beginning of the recruiting process, and your goal there is hopefully to find an organization that does match your skills and potentially get the interview.
Yeah, it's really getting a second interview.
Yeah.
When I've been an in-house recruiter and I've done virtual or gone to have tables at in-person job fairs, a lot of times, it's all about why are we there? As an employer, why are we there? Sometimes we have upcoming roles that we want to fill, so we're getting ahead of it. Sometimes we have pre-scheduled appearances that we've already purchased as an employer when I was working in-house, and we may not have a job, but we're just there to shake hands, maybe to meet people. Sometimes there's a bunch of bulk hires that we're getting ready to do. Um, if you are attending or planning to attend a job fair, someone has already said on the call, the number one thing is kind of determine your reason for being there. What are you looking to get out of this? If they have jobs posted and you've seen some opportunities that you like, or you like the culture there, you've looked at websites of different companies, or you've always wanted to work there, this is your opportunity to shake hands and to have someone remember your face, remember your conversation, remember your questions, but also for you to find out, things that you can't find out on the website. You may see something on the website, but that's your opportunity to shake hands and say, hey, I saw this on the website, or I see that you guys have this department. What types of people are working in that department? What types of talent do you usually recruit for this department or these types of roles? I'm interested in your company. Do you have anything upcoming? Because a lot of times they know what they're there for. They're there to meet people. Usually, that's what we're there for, is to meet people, unless we have a hot job and we're focusing on that particular opportunity. So it's an opportunity for you to get to know them better and to leave a memorable impression. And then sometimes you can flat out ask, hey, if I was interested, other than just applying for jobs on the website, and I want to learn more, who can I talk to? Who's a good person to talk to? Who's a good person to talk to in the HR department? Who's a good person in your department to talk to? And that gets you that inside scoop, which could open the door and the opportunities in the future for you.
Hey, by the way, Yvonne, I noticed you just private chatted me. Actually, that very thing, that referral, would you mind putting that in the main chat for everyone? It looks like Yvonne said that she has a former supervisor who's asked her to refer IT folks. So if anybody here is in IT, she's happy to make the introduction. Would you mind putting all your information in the main chat? If not,
Sure.
that's okay, but that would be great
Yeah.
because everybody could have
Okay.
access to it. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Yvonne. All right. Other questions? Yeah.
Hillary had a question, and did
Oh,
we
thank
answer
you.
that about uh, if you have an informational interview and the person gives you the name of the hiring manager, what should you say when you reach out to the hiring manager? Nothing more than,
I was referred to you by so and so.
I was referred to you by John, and he said you'd be a great
Yeah.
person for me to talk to,
Yeah.
and looking to find time on your calendar.
Exactly.
Was
Right.
that? Yeah.
That's what we call a warm lead. Someone's actually teed up the introduction. Because
Yeah.
people do that different ways. Sometimes they'll give you the name where you need to follow up, and sometimes they will make the introduction for you.
Yeah.
Right? If they don't make the introduction for you because they're just really busy, in fact, what you could even do is you can reach out to the person, and then you can copy the person who referred you, just so that so they see it's legit. So and so referred me to you, and you copy them, and then when you go back and forth on the email thread, you would take that person's name, your referral, and put them into the BCC so that they don't have to go through the scheduling thread. But at least it's legit, it makes it more legit.
And the other thing to do is, after you have the informational interview, if it was a really positive experience, go back to just send a quick thank you to the person who made the introduction for you. I just had a conversation with the hiring manager you recommended. It was a great conversation. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the
Mhm.
introduction.
Exactly. Does that help, Hillary? Do you want to share anything else about that? Any other questions you have about that concept?
Yeah, I was just reaching out and trying to think of what can I say that's not going to just duplicate what I say in my cover letter or resume, but keep it like one or two paragraphs long. So I did reach out, and they came back asking if I had experience in a different way. And I came back with a response. So it was a way to
Mhm.
show that I have this other experience,
Yeah.
which wasn't clear from my resume.
Yeah, right. Because your resume can't anticipate everything that someone's going to ask you, right? Yeah, but the fact that you were referred by someone means that you're a trusted referral. right? The employer is going to say, okay, great. My friend referred Hillary. She must have some good stuff going on. And so whatever you say, they're probably going to say, okay, well, how can I engage her? Right? Or at least consider you in some way. So I think whatever you say is going to be fine as long as you just proactively say, hey, I was referred to you by so and so. Here's a little bit about me. And then to your point, right? Then they can engage you however makes sense. Okay. All right, Monica.
Yeah, no, I have a question. I'm a finalist still for a job that I'm very excited about. The last round, they were asking me about my questions about software, and hopefully I answered right. I feel that my software skills are better than a lot of young people who can't figure out how to work PowerPoint master slides. But in any case, but the question that I have is that there was another job that I was really excited about a couple of weeks ago that we're supposed to make a decision in early March. Obviously, that's come and gone. But and I had gotten several nice emails from the HR and operations manager. Plus, I was pinged on LinkedIn by the executive director. But I saw this week that the organization's HR and operations manager position is now open. And so I don't know if the person who was sending me very nice emails has,
It's gone.
I don't know what happened. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if I should reach out and just say, this other job I would love, but you you get the offer, you can't,
Yeah,
stop. But I'm wondering what's going on because, like I said, the person was emailing me very nicely,
yeah,
and then all of
I
a sudden I was
would.
ghosted.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In fact, let me just, as you notice, whenever we answer questions here, we're trying to answer for everybody too, because everybody
Yeah.
might have some kind of thing going on. So let me address that, Monica, but for everybody as well.
Okay.
Look, first of all, there's always disruption, right? Things happen, people come, they go, and especially right now, and especially in anything related to nonprofits, government contracting, that kind of thing. So we're gonna probably see more of that. So I would recommend if you were contacted originally by HR and you believe HR is gone, you may want to first of all double check just to see, on LinkedIn or if there's any way that you can confirm it. If you can't, that's okay. I then think it's okay to go to the hiring manager and say, look, I was in conversations with Susie Cream Cheese, and I noticed that you have that position open again. Wanted to just follow up on my candidacy, let you know that I'm still active and available and interested and wanted to see if somebody could provide a status on my candidacy. I think that's okay as long as you do it in a delicate way, but I would try to take the extra step just to see if you can figure out if Susie is actually gone before
Yeah,
you do.
well, Susie Cream Cheese would be the HR and
HR
operations,
person.
and that's the job that's now being advertised. And so I was
So you're pretty sure she's
pinged on
gone.
LinkedIn by the executive director, and I had made a contact with one of the other
Then reach out to them. Reach out to them. If they proactively reached out to you, you have total legit right to reach out to them in that same fashion. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Good. Yeah. Hopefully it goes well for you. All right. Other questions or any topics that you'd like Vern Alkiri to dive into a little bit more deeply? We could go into some networking, which I know we do periodically. Why don't we go ahead and do that? In the meantime, if anyone has any questions, you can think about it. So let's do networking. All right, let's go for some networking. All right, so here's how we'll do this. So I have a concept that I know some of you are familiar with. I call it lane versus community, lane and community. So you want to write this down. This is helpful in general for any sort of networking. It's helpful for your branding. It's helpful for your interview. It's a helpful concept, but it'll be helpful for us to go around the room this way. Your lane is your profession. Your community is the industry, mission, or sector that you serve. Okay. Now, I recognize people have had different lanes in their background, but whatever lane it is that either you most recently come from, or more importantly, the lane you're going into, even if it's aspirational. So you're in marketing, you're in human resources, you're in accounting, finance, you're in project management, you have a lane. Okay. So you want to state the lane that you are in or the one preferably that you're going into or staying in. Your community. You may or may not have a community. A lot of people don't. A lot of people are cross-sectoral, right? Some marketing people go for-profit, nonprofit. Some finance people go for-profit, nonprofit. That's okay. But you might have a community, an industry, mission, or sector. If that is the case, please say so, especially because a lot of community folks are birds of a feather, as are lane folks too. Marketing people hang out with each other, HR people hang out with each other, healthcare people hang out with each other, commercial real estate people hang out with each other, right? So you see how this works. So write down your lane, your community. Okay. We're not looking, we don't have time for like a lot of backstory. We're going for forward here, right? Windshield, not rear view mirror. So we're not, we can't, we don't unfortunately have time for the whole, your history, but just say, look, I'm a marketing professional and I'm looking for opportunities in the nonprofit sector. Okay. Just as simple as that. Now, if you would like to say, state one or two specific organizational names, employer names. I'm looking specifically to get into X company or Y company or this nonprofit or what have you. Please let us know because sometimes you might have people on this call who have a contact. And what you want to do with this information is don't just listen. I want you to write it down. So, Gail says, this is my lane, this is my community. And maybe she says, I'm looking to get into this or that organization. I want you to write it down. And if you have a lead for her, a connection for her, hey, you know somebody in that sector. Hey, you know somebody in that organization. I want you to either privately chat her or however you want to do it. But I want you to follow up. And Gail and everybody on this call, if you feel comfortable, I would encourage you to put your contact information in the chat so people can reach you. But make sure right after this call, because everybody forgets, we're all human beings. Okay. We all mean well, but then we forget. Please follow up with that person right away or do an introduction and CC that person. Okay. You really want to make sure that you're doing the connections, right? So real quick, lane, community, and if you have one or two organizations that you'd like to target. So I'm gonna go around my Zoom room and let people know what the order is. So far, Monica, then Gail, then Andrea, and then I'll keep going.
Okay, my lane is writing is communication strategy, writing, editing, and impactful storytelling, all in the same person.
Great.
My community has been international development, but I have also done work in healthcare, performance monitoring, anti-corruption, and fraud. I say with nervous laughter, and some veterans issues. And so I would like to switch to a community that has some relevance to those areas.
Great.
I would be open to continuing in global development where my heart is, but the sector has imploded, so that doesn't seem wise.
All right. Thank you, Monica. If you want to put your contact in the chat, we're happy to help.
Yeah.
All right, Gail, and then Andrea, and then Mark.
I am currently in the lane of customer service and have experience with customer service and account management. And I'm open to different communities.
Okay.
I would say.
Great. Thank you, Gail. Andrea, then Mark, and then Bridget.
Yeah, my lane is operations management. Most recently, I was in partnerships, so a little bit different. I did like it, but it didn't last very long. My community, I've been in both private and nonprofit. I'd prefer to stay in the private sector, but not necessarily specific industry. I've worked in various industries.
Mark, Bridget, and then Kelly.
Yes, I'm Mark Pretzett. I'm an attorney. That is my lane. My community has always been financial services, companies, banks, and similar institutions, and that's where I'm looking for something new. Thank you.
Okay, Bridget, Kelly, and then Andrew.
Hi, my name is Bridget Waits. I am a project manager, operations management. My industry is digital media and technology.
Kelly, Andrew, and then Danielle. Kelly, are you there? Kelly, you're on mute. Maybe he walked away. Okay. Andrew, Danielle, and then Yvonne.
My lane is IT deployment installation.
Okay. Do you have a community, a sector?
Community
Are you neutral?
neutral.
Okay. Sounds like Yvonne might have a lead for you because her colleague is looking for folks. Kelly, are you back with us? Okay. So Danielle, Yvonne, and then Shayun.
I was over here shaking, like, oh, this is good practice, being on the spot here. So so my lane is operations management, contracts management, project management. And then my community is health, but I'm open to other communities.
Gotcha. Looks like Alki, you just put a note in that you're recruiting for an ops role.
I am. So on the unfortunate side, candidates are going to final rounds after a meeting today. However, I may have some new intel or connections in that space. So feel free to reach out and let's chat and see at least if a door opens somewhere.
Now, I just have to press pause. I just want to note what Alki did. Okay. And this is very common. Recruiters, and I am one myself, we go through our process, we have our candidates, we go to all the final rounds, and all of a sudden, this new candidate pops in all the way at the end. Okay. Now, in your cases, Danielle and Andrea, that could actually be in your favor because you're that last minute candidate. But you gotta understand, if you're on the other side of that, okay, and you're one of the finalist candidates, you're thinking this is a shoo-in. Everybody said, oh, you're so fabulous. And then all of a sudden, right? You never know. You never know. So I just want you to understand that recruitment is very, very fluid. Very fluid. Things change on a dime, whether it's a last minute candidate, whether it's Monica said HR person left the job, someone goes on vacation, somebody changes their mind, the job spec change. I mean, there are a million things that could change in a job search. So it's not personal. It's not personal. So if something's going a little bit funky, just understand that things change all the time and you've got to be very agile, right? And understanding. But yes, even like to Monica's question, so now what do I do? Well, so now she's going to go ahead and reach out to the ED because they pinged her. Okay. So you just have to sort of think, well, what do I do to make sure that I'm still under consideration? But even if things change, it may have nothing to do with you. It just may be that something changed. Okay. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. We got to pack our patience with job search. It's very important. All right. So Yvonne and then Shayun and then LB.
Okay, thank you, Shira. My name is Yvonne Evans, and my lane is human resources. I'm an employee relations specialist, employee relations and engagement. Industries have been pharma, academia, and retail. I'm also looking at nonprofits.
Great. Thank you, Yvonne. By the way, Yvonne, are you familiar with HR Leaders in Transition?
Yes.
Great. So you're plugged into the HR community, HR Alliance, HRLF world. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Sure. Shayun and LB.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shirunke. I looking for roles in learning and development. I've been in healthcare for the past 10 years, but I'm open to switching to other industries like consulting, finance, or medical insurance. So the roles that I'm looking for are L&D advisor, program management, L&D manager, or something adjacent to those roles. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
LB? Oh, sorry.
if I can sneak in real quick to your digression point that you did on my digression point, I'm now going to do the same thing that you just did. So the client that I'm recruiting for the ops role, they're in learning development. So they don't have a role right now, but who knows whether or not they'll have one in the future. So we talk about networking on this call. That's just an example. Maybe nothing comes out of this for you directly, but another example of people who know people who know people.
That's right.
We talk about that a lot on this call. So I'm just sitting back going, yep, that's how the world works here, is that I have I've just now heard two ops people who, unfortunately, had I met you 2 weeks ago, I would have probably slammed you right on in. And depending on what your qualifications are, I know the hiring manager, my recommendation is tip top, and you would have gotten probably through the process. But on the other hand, they're in learning development as well as you are. So the connections happen all the time. And this is how we recruit. And this is why we encourage you all to, yeah, maybe do a little job search on the side and apply for jobs online. But
Absolutely.
this is where the
This is the
real
this,
action happens.
And it happens in two ways, right? So in a group like this, which is obviously very diverse, lots of lanes, lots of communities, you never know who knows who. Absolutely. And not or, and networking within your community, within your lane, because there is a birds of a feather, right? A lot of times people in your lane or people in your community will naturally hear about opportunities that are not right for them, but could be right for you, because that's how recruiters work. When we recruiters recruit for you all, we are doing searches, especially on LinkedIn, and we're putting in a job title or we're putting in a community, and we're like looking for the people who are in that flow because we know. So for example, I'm with Yvonne. I said, "Oh, is she a member of HR Leaders in Transition?" Well, I happen to know that group. Vern knows that group because we've been playing in the HR community for a long time. Well, that means that HR group, they're going to hear about HR opportunities that may not be right for the people in that group, but could be right for Yvonne. That's a community. It's a fish pond, if you will, right? So try to also connect with the people who are swimming in your pond, in addition to networking with folks where there's a diverse, right, mix of people. So both are really, really helpful. Great. And then LB.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lalita Balsu, and I'm a software quality assurance and project and vendor management professional looking for an EdTech company. So I'm looking for anything related to quality assurance, project management in any IT field or any field. I'm okay with it. Currently, I was like working in the EdTech.
And I'm so sorry. For some reason that your Zoom audio wasn't quite crystal clear. Would you do us a huge favor and also put that in the chat so we can read what you just said?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and Kelly, and I'm not sure if you're back with us. Okay. All right. So, are there any other deep dive topics that you'd like us to explore with you? Resumes, interviewing, networking, LinkedIn, salary negotiation. We do all kinds of things here. Anything that's tripped you up?
I have a question.
Sure.
When it comes to salary negotiation, and you see, usually when they post salary ranges on job descriptions, it's just very extreme. It never really makes sense to
Yeah.
me. But then you get on the phone with the recruiter and he or she's asking what your range is,
Right.
and you eventually get to know what they
Right.
have budgeted for the role, and you're like,
Right.
okay, but
Right.
it's nowhere close to
I know.
like the extreme end
I
of
know.
the range. So how do you deal with that when it comes to maybe you eventually get an offer and you want to negotiate? How do you, how how
Right.
would that process
Well,
work?
you've just opened up one of my favorite topics to talk about. Here we go, right? Ready to just buckle in. Get a little sermon here. So first, let me explain to you all what's going on, why you're now seeing these big ranges. Okay, so let's first explain that. So within the last number of years, there has been a move in this country towards what we call pay transparency. Some people call it pay equity. And there's a very good intention behind all of this, which is to encourage and sometimes require employers to post a salary range so that candidates don't have to disclose their former salary. And the reason for that is because there are individuals in this country who might consider themselves marginalized and are making typically less than what others might be making. And so the intention is to sort of level this out and say, no, we're no longer going to ask you what your past salary was, because if we do that, we employers know that we're going to continue to pay you as low as you used to be making. Okay. So now we're not going to do that. We're going to post the range. And so now you can make a decision, is this range right for you? Okay. And there's some states in the union that actually literally have requirements, like Colorado, California, New York, about 20 states in the union that require this. But here's the kicker. The government never said it has to be a realistic range. They just said it has to be a range. So a lot of employers are checking the box, getting around the rule, skirting it by putting this ridiculous range, $100,000 range, something silly. Okay. So they're checking the box. They're being legally compliant, but and they might as well put no range. Okay, they might as well put nothing because now we're back to the same question before the ranges used to be posted when there was nothing. And then the employer's like, hey, so what are you looking for? Now they're not necessarily asking you what are you making, so that part's usually going away. But there's still this, what are you looking for? And if you have been in that sort of marginalized category, and you've been making sort of if you've been underpaid and you don't know any better, you're going to probably say something around that range, which still is going to keep you on the lower side. So here's my recommendation. Okay. So when you see the kind of crazy range, just pretend as if they didn't say anything. There was no range at all. You just have to go with it in the following way. So first of all, you need to do your research. Now, I'm not saying this is the easiest thing. I'm not saying this is a foolproof thing, but you want to do your research as best as you can to find out or to figure out what an appropriate range should be for this role. Now, what do I mean by that? Because that means a lot of things. The level of the position, the sector that it's coming from, the size of the organization, the geography that it's in. I mean, there are a lot of different factors here, and I don't mean to get overly complex with you, but please understand, right? If a manager level in a small business is going to pay here, and that same manager level in a very large company is going to pay way up here, is a huge differential. And then you put it in different parts of the country, and private versus nonprofits, you see where we go. There's just a whole lot of variables. So you want to do your research on salary.com, on Glassdoor. If there's any HR people that you know of, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. Okay.
You're back.
It's frozen.
Sharon.
I'm back. Okay. Glassdoor, salary.com. If there are any HR people in your network that you can talk to who are actually in that world, that kind of lane, that kind of community, like they understand it. Talk to colleagues. Think of your own background, right? Just try to put it all together and think, okay, what would be a realistic range that I should be going after? But it's more than that. You want to think of this as a negotiation. It is a negotiation. And like with any negotiation, you always start high and then they can take you down. Never start low because then it's very hard to get back up. Meaning, this is one of the biggest tips I could ever give you. Everybody listen up. Never, 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 ever, ever. When the employer says to you, what are you looking for? Never give them a 2-range number. Why? What's the number they're going to give you? The low end, of course. It's a business negotiation. It's not personal. If you are buying or selling a house, it's the exact same thing. One side wants to get as much as possible. One side wants to get as little. It is literally a business negotiation. It is not personal. Okay. Treat it like a business negotiation. So your job is to start high, just like the seller would in a house. They start up here and they realize they might have to go a little down, but they start high. You start high. Now, I don't mean a ridiculous number. I'm going to make up numbers now. Okay. I'm going to say that you have a number. Let's call it 130. And that's what I call your happy dance number. You're comfortable with that number, really, like it's a good number for you. And you think it kind of matches the role, the range. You've done your research. You're thinking, yeah, it's probably realistic. So you go in when they say to you, so what are you looking for? What you're saying is, I'm seeking, everybody write this down. I'm seeking a total cash compensation package around the 130 range, around 130. And when you say that, they're going to hear 130. They're not even going to hear total compensation package. They're just going to hear 130. And then what'll happen is they've got one of two, the recruiter has one of two options. If you are naturally in the range, because they know their range is like 120 to 150, they'll say, okay, great, you're good. And then they move on. There's no other conversation. Yeah, you're good. Not going to tell you that they can pay 150. They're just going to know you're in their range. However, if you are above their range, and this is the thing that makes job seekers very squirrely. I don't want to be outside the range. I don't want to lose the opportunity. If you're above the range, at that point, that's when the recruiter is actually going to tell you what they can really afford. So if you say, I'm at 130, I want around 130, and they can only pay 110, then then they're actually gonna say, hey, this is the top that I can pay. We can pay 110. And then they'll say, are you flexible? Are you flexible? At which point you can say, well, actually I am a bit flexible because I'm seeking a total cash compensation package. Mr. Employer, can we talk about benefits? Now you're negotiating the benefits, and maybe it's, bonus, sign on, extra vacation, whatever. But you can say, is there anything we can do to kind of get me total compensation wise closer to my range, to my target number? Now, I will also say this. This is another good piece of this. When you say the 130, let's say they say, well, actually, gosh, we're really off target. The most we can pay is 75. Guess what? You've dodged a bullet. That's clearly probably not your job because you're way, way off. You're way, way off. And that's good. There's so many reasons why it's good to start with that happy dance number, because they're going to actually let you know how close or far away you are from that number. Does that make sense? So you don't give a range, give a nice happy dance number that you believe fits the market, fits your skills, fits the role, and then you go from there. So that's my long speech. And somebody mentioned that I did go into detail on this on the Saturday call. So if you all go into the chat and pull the video from last week for the Higher Vision video, yes, it's broken up, by the way, it's broken up into part 1 and part 2 because I had a technical glitch with Zoom. It's a long story. But even so, it's this part 2 of the video at some point in there is when I go into a lot of detail around this. So I hope that's helpful. Monica?
Yeah, I had a question about the vacation. You were talking about the total compensation package. And so, like, let's say somebody could only pay what would be your minimum. What would be reasonable to say that you would accept in terms of vacation? I mean, because I think vacation is like 3 weeks, but would you say 4 weeks or 5 weeks?
Yeah, right. So
I don't know.
It's not a literal dollar amount at that point. That it's just more like a negotiation thing.
Yeah.
So here's what I would, and that's actually vacations. We never talk about vacation here for some reason. I don't know, but let's just go here for the moment. In general, not just for negotiation, not just for salary, but just in general. So here's the thing with vacation. On the one hand, I'm gonna be very cute about this. Vacation is a freebie for employers, so to speak, right? It doesn't cost them. It's not a hard cost for them. It's a soft cost. So it's oftentimes it's not a big deal for them to give you an extra week, not 2 weeks, 1 week. Okay, 1 week. Oftentimes they are completely flexible and like, yeah, sure. Not always though. In fact, I'm starting a search right now, and I was talking to the employer yesterday, and she's like, yeah, nobody. She says she herself, and she's a COO. She goes, I couldn't get the extra week. We just don't do that here. Okay, fine. Some people literally just don't do that. Or they're pretty strict. Let's say it's a larger organization. They're pretty strict that you have to be there for 3 years or whatever until you get that extra week. You can always ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. People understand when you ask that question. Please ask the question if you feel like, hey, it could be a negotiating point. But if they say no, there's usually a reason why. They're not just holding back. It's usually because they just can't. Like it doesn't follow in their policy.
But in the context of being willing to take a lower salary than
that's why you'd offer it.
You would say what your standard vacation is 3 weeks,
3
but I
weeks.
would be willing to go for 4 weeks or
Yes,
whatever.
that's exactly how you would say it. Yes. Can we negotiate? Yes. Can we negotiate on vacation in lieu of salary and ask for an extra week? So the employer will be perfectly fine that you offered that. They may or may not be able to accommodate it.
Okay.
They are perfectly happy. It makes perfect. They would do the same thing if they were negotiating. Like, yeah, can you give me an extra week of vacation? It's the most normal thing in the world. Some people can accommodate and some people can't.
Yeah. So let me jump in here and give you the view from when I was sitting in this HR seat. So I give Monica an extra week, and Bridget, who's been there 10 years, finds out that I gave Monica an extra week.
Then you have an equity issue.
Man, you just don't want to, at least personally, I do not want to be there. And so, so as Shira said, no, we can't do that. Here's our vacation policy. If you're here this number of years, you get 2 weeks.
Right.
And I would not negotiate on that because of that. That just creates more problems for HR and the employee. and the organization,
Yeah.
and employees get upset, and it's
There's a fairness rule that sometimes applies in
yeah,
organization.
yeah,
It's tricky.
Does
it
that
should be.
depend on the size of the organization, like a
Not
small
necessarily.
organization? No.
Not necessarily.
No,
Nah,
no,
everybody's
doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
It,
It's just
Yeah.
whatever the sort of norm is, the culture for that organization. Yeah, everybody's
what one of the ways to approach negotiations in general is, if you when you realize, well, the buck stops here on the money. Um, Most of us, even though you can have targets, and sometimes they may ask you, even with money, for example, is there any wiggle room on the salary? And they may come back and go, hey, what are you thinking about? So they're asking for a number or a range and specifics. At some point, it usually gets there, but you can start negotiations instead of putting them in a box. Hey, can I have an extra week of vacation? You could just ask, okay, where do you have flexibilities? Where are
Yeah,
you willing
great.
to look, and just keep it
Yeah.
as an open thing. Is there flexibility on leave? Is there flexibility on working remote?
Yeah.
Is there flexibility, and
On
ask them,
a sign-on bonus.
there you go.
Yeah, that's great, Alki. That's right. You just ask them open-ended. Where can we look at my total compensation package to get me a little closer to what my target is? Great point, Alki. Yeah, that's right. Just what so no, you get them to partner with you in the negotiation. It's perfect. It's perfect. All right, great. Anything else going on in the chat that I should be aware of?
Don't be upset if they go in the back and give you a t-shirt.
Nice. That's great. That's great. And Yvonne, since you're in HR, anything you want to add to this conversation?
No, but I did have that conversation with someone who was a candidate, very front runner. She wanted additional compensation, which we had to deny, but she also wanted additional insurance perks, which we had to also deny. So, I guess be careful what you wish for, because a lot of times employers are not able to do that. What we did do was we gave her one extra day of PTO, and she accepted.
Right.
Yeah,
You do what you can. Just ask. Just
exactly.
ask. You
Yeah,
never
just
know.
ask. Yep.
Shoot for the stars and you'll land on the moon, right? Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up for today. I'll go ahead and formally close the call here. For those of you who would like to stay on for a short prayer call, I'm delighted to lead you in that. And if you are interested, I don't know if everyone here heard about the Higher Vision, but if you are interested, if you or somebody you know is is federally disrupted, either a government employee, nonprofit NGO, or GovCon, please have them reach out to me. I'm going to put my email here, and we were happy to.
Hey, Sarah, sorry, I had to take care of something. Would you want me to post this on my LinkedIn profile?
Yes, except that we don't have enough. There isn't really what to post. Yeah, we had last week's webinar, so that's done. But the new structure, we don't have the formal structure yet. But when we do, we're going to be asking people to post this. So
Just
stay,
let me know. I'll go ahead and
hang tight.
post it.
Hang tight for that. And if you are looking to, let me ask you this: if anybody would like to either volunteer or they just want to be a participant, please email me and let me know which it is or both. And so, for example, Yvonne, if you're interested, you mentioned volunteering, just privately email me that, and then I can put you on our list. And like I said, we have a volunteer meeting tomorrow, Saturday, at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if anybody would like to join us, again, please email me about that. All right.
Is the workshop every Saturday?
No. Just to be clear, we have not yet formally stood up any weekly meetings. I'm measuring twice before we're going to prepare for this very thoughtfully, because we want to have a nice infrastructure for people to plug into. So we have not started yet. When we do, when it's ready, I'm going to let everybody know all the particulars. But thank you, Kelly, for helping support us. All right, all. So let me go ahead and pause the recording here.